I'm the owner of All Pride Environmental and Restoration, located here in North Central Florida. Currently working in Crystal River from cleanup efforts from Hurricane Helene. So basically, I'm a Florida State licensed mold remediation contractor, Florida State licensed mold assessor. I hold several certifications through, a couple of different governing bodies, like the IICRC. I've been in property restoration almost 20 years. In that time, I've taken part of roughly 10,000 insurance claims when it comes to property damage, whether it be water, flood, mold, fires, bio, you name it. This will be now the seventh major storm that I've responded to and been taking part of the cleanup effort. So when it comes to flood work, I have some pretty good, I got some good chops, so to say. This house right now, we're working in Crystal River. This house that we're working on right now was actually gutted before we got here by a local contractor. One of the things that I'm hearing out there from people working not just in this area, but in Tampa specifically, that insurance companies are, basically telling contractors and homeowners that they're not going to be paying any damages above 4 feet. Crystal River specifically, the houses that I've seen so far, had about a 5-foot water line in them in the first floor. It's estimated storm surge of, I believe 8 to 9 feet. This house has 3 feet before it takes on water. The water line in here appears to me to be about 5 feet. The contractor came in, basically took the walls out at 3 and 4 feet. That we weren't missing anything and kind of doing things the right way. I came out, instantly found insulation that was still wet, instantly found, the T111 siding that they're using for their walls still wet, and then, informed them that it was my opinion that best case practices that, anything porous, non-structural should be removed 2 feet beyond the water line. Best case practices. You're not always going to be able to do that, but those would be best case. At least 6 inches at a minimum. 6 inches at a minimum. Some things that you can do. As I'm out here working, I'm trying to figure out. I have a small company. I'm not really able to help a ton of people, and over the past several days, I'm trying to figure out I wish I could do more or whatever. And I'm I guess the only thing I can do is, just put my experience out there and some guidance for, there's going to be a lot of people who have to do this on their own. They're not going to have the resources. Getting companies to come do work for you is going to be difficult. Everyone, the resources for this type of thing are going to be stretched very thin. Especially people who didn't have flood insurance. One, your flood insurance, unfortunately people are waking up now, and if they've never been through this before, realizing that their flood insurance isn't really that great. It's not all it's cracked up to be. You don't really pay for that much. So there's going to be a lot of people who are doing this on their own, or paying out of pocket. So I just wanted to kind of do a quick video, if I was, just a homeowner and I had, the experience I had and limited tools, just some simple things that I would do in my own home. The first thing that I would do is, this may sound crazy, and I know some of your homes don't have access to fresh water yet, but my personal opinion is the first thing I would do is flush out whatever areas of your house been, impacted by surge water or storm water, to flush your house out. I would recommend going around. The first thing you're going to have to do, in this house had to be mucked out. Most houses in the northern part of the state that have more of a clay bed in the water, are going to have to deal with more mud than our friends down south. You know, a lot of them are going to have a lot of issues with sand. You know, my opinion is the sand is probably going to be, no, they both are going to suck in and out of your house, never mind. But in this house specifically, muck out, we did a freshwater rinse, wash. You know, what I would recommend is cheap, you know, pump sprayer, some detergent, do like, you know, maybe a 1/4 ounce to each container. And I'm just going to speak in layman's terms and try to keep this very simple. Like, put a little bit of this and some of this, you know, pump it up, spray all the studs, spray your floor, spray anything that was affected, you know, and then come behind that with a hose. You know, I wouldn't recommend power washing at this point, unless you have to. I would do a first run with just your hose. Try to remove as much of it as possible without forcing more moisture into the things that we're gonna have to try to dry or let dry naturally. So I would flush everything out, use a mild detergent, and then, you know, squeegee the water out of your house, use a shop vac. You know, you can call carpet companies. They may be your best bet to find somebody who can do extraction for you. Right now, trying to get a restoration company to your home is going to be very difficult, but there may be carpet cleaners that are available, and they usually all have some sort of extraction equipment. There's a couple other different companies that you could call around, you know, so you could do it that way. But if you don't have the money, shop vac, squeegee, you know, all those things would work really, really well. You know, I was fortunate in this house where 2 garage doors right here, so I was able to rinse everything and pretty much, and that wall wasn't existing either, so I was able to, you know, pretty much flush out of here, everything out of here pretty rapidly. You know, at that point, it's kind of, as far as my opinion is, it's kind of a waiting game unless you have access to commercial drying equipment. You know, it's going to take, you know, probably 3 to 4 weeks, best case scenario, for the stud walls in your home to come back down to where you can seal them back up without having concerns of secondary damages. You know, and the reason that I'm also recommending using the initial flush is, you know, we're trying to remove as much of that nasty, the flood water is just, you know, E. coli, salmonella, just a nasty host of all these different bacteria. You know, everything that's in our grass, everything that's, you know, industrial areas, you name it, it's in those waters. You know, as an environmental person, you know, a lot of times when I'm doing environmental work, it's really, you know, looking at risk. You know, when we're making determinations on things, if things should be torn out or left in, you know, the potential risk for exposure to bacteria on a stud wall that's sealed up, you know, I think does hold very little, you know, risk as far as being infected by one of those pathogens. But I do think that the real concern would be that bacteria is, you're basically creating the perfect environment for mold. Mold loves bacteria. It's a great food source. You know, if the wood is still wet, insulation is still wet, you know, the wood hasn't been treated and you seal that back up, you're really asking for, you know, problems in the future. So, you know, that would be my main concern. And you gotta realize it's gonna take time. If you're doing this on your own and if you don't have access to, like I said, commercial drying equipment or any of these things, like, it's gonna take some time, you know. So don't be in a rush. You know, focus on getting your house clean. That's what I would be doing. You know, focusing on getting my house clean. You know, once we rinse the walls, you know, we're gonna let them dry. You can call up someone like me. You know, you can call. There's lots of different environmental people, consultants out there that will come out, and after the work has been done, they'll come in and verify the work that your contractor has done. They'll come in and moisture map and look at different areas, and they can look at the air, and they can look at all these things. If you want to take it a next step further, again, most people aren't going to have, you know, the probably minimum $1,000 that it's going to cost to have something like that done. So what I would do is go online or go to a hardware store, Home Depot, Lowe's, whatever. I mean, everyone's basically carrying moisture equipment at this time. You know, the one that I have, I think this is like, you know, $500. You know, you don't need anything this fancy. You know, I think you could probably get a good moisture detector for, you know, under $100. And in a situation like this, I think it's imperative that you have something to verify that the moisture is, you know, gone. You know, you don't need to really go down the rabbit hole with psychometrics or any of that other nonsense. You know, just understand that, you know, if you live in the state of Florida, you know, and I've worked all over Florida, so I have a good baseline as far as, you know, the dry standard for materials. You know, I would want to see studs, you know, to have moisture content sub 12%. I think 12, you know, so, you know, ideally 8-9% is ideal, but I think time of year, you know, being close to the coast, all these other things, you know, from my experience, dry standard for a stud, you know, sub 12 is what we're kind of looking for. So you want to verify that. You know, the sill plates, the lower sections of the walls are going to stay wetter for a very long time. You know, the problem that we're also facing is we're coming off the back end of the rainy season. Ground level, you know, the water ground levels are high. The slab is most likely, even under normal conditions this time of year, the slab is probably going to be saturated, like it's going to be at capacity. This is the time of year when we start having people who get water coming into their house just through like hydrostatic pressure and stuff. So the slab is already soaked. You know, we throw a bunch of water in here. You know, the real issue is we have high humidity. You know, the issue being is there's just nowhere for the moisture to go. So the sill plate could take a very long time. You know, if you're getting ready to go back with wood floors or, you know, engineered wood floors, LVP, anything like that, you know, you're going to be, you know, if you want to do it the right way and you want to wait until the slab is nice and dry before you install these things, I mean, you're going to have to wait a long time. That's what I would do, you know. So verification that the studs are dry, okay? And then at that point, once all my wood was dry, you know, we did the initial cleaning, you know, we came in and power washed the floors. I would power wash the floors if you have soot, you know, I would try as hard as I could to get everything out of the wall cavity, get everything away from the walls. Just use fresh water from the hose, kind of rinse everything away, and then at that point, power wash the soot or sand or whatever you're working with outside of your home. You know, once you get everything dry, the next thing that I would do is go through and HEPA vacuum all the wall cavities, and this is just a shop vac with a HEPA bag attached to it. Upgrade your filter, you know, bristle brush, you know, definitely if, you know, I didn't have access to, you know, commercial grade HEPA vacuum, I feel very confident that this setup would work for you. And then at that point, once you go through and get everything vacuumed, you know, make sure to use not just the bristle brush, but the detail attachment. So try to get as much in all the little nooks and crannies as you can. You know, you want it to look spotless, okay? The next thing I would do is get yourself some good disinfectant. In this right now, I have Clorox 360. So it's a broad spectrum disinfectant. You know, I just happen to have a bunch of this left over from COVID. So this is a perfect scenario to use some. I typically don't use it. I usually use, you know, botanical based disinfectant for my mold jobs, but I feel like this is probably a better fit for something that's a little more heavy duty. So I'm using Clorox 360. You know, you can use any good broad spectrum disinfectant. Get them online, get them from Lowe's, Home Depot. Just make sure that they are broad spectrum, and just when you're applying it, if you're buying them, make sure that, you know, if you can use, you know, if it's concentrated, if you have to add water, if it's not, you can use the, you know, just read it before you use it. Be aware of the dwell times. A lot of these products have a dwell time of like 10 minutes. So meaning, you know, the surface has to stay wet for a certain amount of time for it to be 100% effective. So make sure you're checking all that stuff out. But disinfect it. And then at that point, let that dry. And I think you would be in really good shape. You know, I would consider that, you know, those surfaces to be clean at that point, you know, probably cleaner than they were before the flood happened. The other thing that I would do is, some of us aren't going to have power. Some of you aren't going to have power for a long time, so having access to your AC is really a luxury, just like having fresh water right now. I know some parts of where the storm hit don't have access to those things yet. So, but the people that do, you know, I believe that, you know, usually under normal circumstances, when we're doing this type of work, we wouldn't have the AC running while we do our work to limit potential of like cross-contamination of the system and stuff. But given this scenario, you know, your AC system is going to assist with drying your home out. So if you have access to it, I would recommend using it. I would use it in my home. The things that I would be doing if I was running my AC system, doing heavy demo, first thing I would install is like a MERV. I think this is 13. Yeah, so, you know, MERV rating is going to be capture ratio for particulate on your filter. 13 is about as good as you can go. I think there's a couple steps above that, but 13 will capture everything from household dust and debris all the way up to bacteria. And this is the one that we're really, really looking for. You know, mold is important, but when it comes to flood restoration, bacteria is also very important. You know, a lot of people will say that, you know, bacteria doesn't really hold any threats, you know, airborne threats. From my understanding and my professional opinion is as materials dry, those bacteria dry also, and at that time they can aerosolize. So when you have a dry conditions and you have the presence of bacteria, they can become airborne. So I would recommend using this filter. You know, you're probably going to have to change it a few times, you know, and I would, you know, if you have the money, I would recommend after this getting your system professionally cleaned. But if not, you know, definitely run these for, you know, the next few months until the air quality gets back down to where it's going to be. And, you know, you can call a professional to come check that out like me, or you can go online and you can find, you know, pretty cheap equipment to be able to look at your air in real time. I mean, they have on-the-counter units. You don't have to, you know, be an engineer or scientist to use it. Pretty self-explanatory. Do a little research what clean air versus what dirty air looks like. There's stuff out there that you can do this on your own, okay? Definitely run it. Use your AC system. You know, during the demo phase, I would use, you know, they sell filters specifically for demo that are, you know, a pre-filter is what we would call it. Basically, it's going to be a filter before the filter. It's going to stop from, you know, any large, you know, these filters are expensive, so you don't want to run it while you're doing heavy demo. So use a pre-filter when you're doing your demo, you know, your first couple rounds of initial cleaning or whatever, and, you know, continue to use these for a while. You know, the one thing to watch out is, you know, higher MERV rated filters will put a little strain on your system. Typically, I wouldn't recommend this high of a MERV rating for typical residential homes, but, you know, given the circumstances that we're at right now, I would definitely be adding this in my house for sure and using it during, you know, the restoration process. Okay, yeah, so again, we're in a house where a contractor came in ahead of us and essentially cut everything where he thought, you know, water line would be. You know, you can see his marks here when he cut everything out. The insulation was removed beyond that point. So when I came in, I mean, you can clearly see that the insulation was impacted. I mean, and I can feel it. It's wet to touch, you know, to about here. And you know, it looks like we can already see that there's some mold growth starting up on these upper walls. You know, so to me, that wood is saturated. Okay. Again, I'm going to be looking for sub 10 as I dry this house out. You know, I'm going to be looking for sub 10 moisture content, you know, before I tell the homeowner that, you know, we've successfully dried this house. So again, you know, make sure you're going above the water line. You know, my recommendations is 2 feet above, you know, but at the minimum, go 6 feet. I mean, you could already see, you know, it's been, you know, 4 days now at this point, and you're already starting to have some mold growth start on some of these studs. So, I mean, you can clearly see it. So, after I was done HEPA vacuuming, you know, I would do that several times, and then what I would do is, you know, a 5-gallon bucket, some clean rags. I would make up my, you know, my magic solution here, some water and Dawn, and you know, you can use like an end of a Swiffer or get creative, however, and you know, drop my rags in a bucket, wring them out. You want them pretty much dry, and then go through and wipe all the surfaces down. You know, after that, you could do a wipe down with a disinfectant if you felt like you needed to. If you have people in your home who are super sensitive, you know, immune compromised, all these other things, and that's the other thing too. I want to put a little emphasis on that. You know, things that I'm recommending are things that I would do in a pinch if I didn't have the resources to hire somebody or the skills, the equipment, whatever, to do it 100% the right way. You know, this video is really for, you know, the do-it-yourselfers who are going to be taking this on. I was just trying to figure out how to give some input and try to help people. You know, so things, if you do have small children, if you have people who are sick in your home, immune compromised, or, you know, the elderly, I mean, those people are going to be always more susceptible to environmental issues. So you have to weigh all those factors. You know, if you have a situation like that, you know, you may have to, at the minimum, hire a professional to at least come in and verify that the house is clean before you guys move back in. You know, if you're going to spend money on anything, I would say that that would be the most important thing. If you're going to do it yourself, great. You know, we'll put some links in this. You can, you know, message me or give me a call, email me, whatever. If you have questions, you know, about your insurance company, about a contractor you're working with, about the process, like what you should do, like, can you explain what you meant when you said this? You know, obviously I'm not a paid spokesman or anything. I'm a contractor trying to, you know, shoot some dumb video in between working. So, you know, if anybody needs any help with any of this stuff, you know, please feel free to contact me. I would love to help you. I'm not looking for anything in return. I'm not looking for work. I'm at my capacity over here in Crystal River. But I do want to help as many people as I can, and really the only thing that I can offer is my experience, and I'm willing to give that out for free. So yeah, God bless, and you know, it's going to take time. You know, and I hate saying this, but it kind of is what it is at this point with your home. Now it's just time to take steps forward to get it fixed, and some of you are just not even sure where to start. Start with what I just told you. Cut everything out. Get, you know, your content, your furniture, if it's porous, you know, clothing, furniture, all these things, you know, it's pretty much a goner. Obviously, if it's an antique or has sentimental value or some, you know, crazy cost or whatever it is associated with it, then you have to weigh that out. But under normal circumstances, anything porous would be considered, you know, non-salvageable and not worth trying to clean or fix or whatever. Get that stuff out of your house and go through and just start, you know, mold's going to start here in Florida, from my experience, 72 hours. You know, wall cavity that's been impacted under normal circumstances, clean water. A wall cavity that gets wet that is not remediated, especially on an exterior wall insulation, 72 hours seems to be about the threshold before I start seeing visibly growing mold, okay? So it's gonna be there. So get it out. Make sure you're try to wear PPE. You know, right now I'm lucky that I have masks and glasses and all the things that I need to kind of keep myself safe. You know, some of you are not gonna have access to that. You know, at the minimum, you know, makeshift handkerchief, something. Wear some sort of protection, sunglasses, whatever. If you're running a saw, doing demo, just try to take care of yourself. You know, that's the other thing too, is like, you know, people really, the exposure risk is really more at the tear out point. You have a cut, you get a cut, whatever, you're working with dirty materials, you have a wound, and then you're pulling out nasty swamp water, and that's where people are going to end up with infections, and you know, that's where the risk is going to be highest with dealing with these things. So wear some gloves, try to have a respirator, protect your eyes, you know, be careful, but you can do it. I can do it. You know, if I can do it, anybody out there, you know, I'm not a super smart guy or whatever, you know, it's just a process. Just go through the steps. You're gonna have some patience, just work slow, just understand that your house, you know, depending on your resources, may look like this for a year, you know. That's okay, you know, just do it the right way, because if you don't, I promise you, you're putting good money towards bad. The last thing you want to do is start rebuilding your home and not making sure that it is clean and dry, because it's going to be a problem for you in the future. All right, so feel free, have some sort of link, whatever. You know, you can reach out to me, any questions, any advice. If you have a problem with your insurance company, you know, if you need some sort of rebuttal, you know, I'm working with a lot of contractors right now, especially in Tampa, that are getting a lot of pushback from adjusters as far as like what should come out, what versus what not coming out, you know, giving refreshers on, you know, the standard on textiles and furniture and all these things. So any of those questions, anything anybody needs, you know, hit me up, you know, I'll be happy to help you.